Good morning, everybody. I am so excited. I have with me this morning someone I can't even begin to describe him. And I've just had an encounter with him myself, and it's caused something in me. He's caused something in me to stir up, and I'll just leave him to do a lot of the talking today. I want to say a very big welcome to Reverend Keith Poole, and I'm so grateful for that you have accepted to speak with us, and looking forward to all that we'll be hearing from you today. And he is an expert in leadership, a member of the John Maxwell leadership team, and there's so many parts about him that I will leave for us to find out ourselves. But we're just going to go straight to talking to him this morning, as he's going to be talking to us about some very important knowledge and insight about leadership and how we can effectively do the work that God has committed into our hands. Thank you again, and Reverend Keith, you're welcome. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation, David. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak with yourself and your church and every other person who's watching this on YouTube. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. And I'll fire away. Okay. And I have questions. I've had to write down these questions so that I can ask them as I should and not miss anything. So the first thing I have here, as a leader, a lot of us have found ourselves thrust into different leadership positions, and not so many are sometimes prepared for these positions that they have been thrust into. And one of the things that we struggle with because of our lack of knowledge, lack of insight, lack of preparation is how to convey our vision, how to convey something that is sometimes the ideas that are complex. How do we say it in an easy way for everyone to understand, for our church, for our businesses, for our organization to just fall in line with us? How do we convey complex ideas to everyone in a simple way?
That's a very good question there, David. I can remember many years ago when I was at Bible college, and a preacher came as a guest at the Bible college, and he said something along the lines of, if you can speak to the least intelligent person in the room, then everybody will understand. So when we are preparing to communicate vision, or whether we are preparing to speak on Sunday, or Bible school, Bible teaching, whatever, Bible study, or if it's just talking about and explaining the vision to the parish, to the church.
Yep.
Always keep what you're saying simple. The problem that we often face as pastors is we think it's all about us. So we have to impress people. So we have to try and come out with big words, complex points, lots of meanings to words and all this sort of thing. And yet, what happens to most people is they listen to what you say, and before they've even left the building, they've forgotten half of what you said, because it was far too complicated for them. So I know this sounds far too simple to say this, and when I say this, you think, what a strange answer. But with all my heart, I try to communicate and I try to teach in a very, very simple manner, because then, not being rude to anybody or disrespectful to anybody, but if the least intelligent person there can understand, then I will virtually guarantee that everybody's listening can also understand. I try to make things in point form. I try to bring in humor. You've heard me speak. I try to bring in humor, because again, when you bring in humor, people's guards will drop, and then you can make the point you wanted to say, and they're more open to receive what you want to say. So don't be afraid to use humor in the message that you're trying to speak. Yeah, you're trying to convey to people. Again, sometimes we think we can't do that in church. We can't do how can we, say something funny or humorous? We have to be serious. This is God's house, after all. We must be reverent and serious. Give me a break. God's got a bigger sense of humor than all of us. He created you, after all. So he has a sense of humor. Using humor when we communicate helps our level of communication. So we use points. I would always break down what I want to say into points. I'd use humor. I'd keep it simple. I'd use my choice of words. Well, I'd choose my choice of words very carefully so that I didn't use words, that were too complicated for people, because I repeat, it's not about us. It's not about trying to make us look good and us impressing people. It's about trying to convey what we're trying to say, that message, so that people understand. Because if at the end of the day, the people don't understand, then we've really wasted our time. We may as well have stayed at home and we may have not bothered. So keep it simple. Again, some people think that's far too simple. You can't do that. If you've ever read any of the Kenneth Hagin books, if you read his books, all of his books are written in a very simple format. They're not complicated. They're so simple that you can miss some of the points that he's trying to make because they're so simple. But that is actually done deliberately, so that everybody in every walk of life, even if English isn't your first language, you can understand. So, we hear from what the Bible says, less of me, more of God. So, even in our communication styles, less of us. We're not trying to explain to everybody everything we know, because look at me, I'm the pastor, I'm the leader here, I've got to impress you. We don't have to be insecure about that. We got to be secure in what we're saying and just seek to say what God wants you to say. And, to go off tack slightly, when you hear people bring a prophetic word, quite often I do this, somebody starts and you think, yeah, this is of God. Then you listen. Then all of a sudden, at some point, you suddenly think they should have stopped talking now, but they carry on. And at that point, I think to myself, why are you carrying on? Because what you've said, you think isn't good enough, grand enough, big enough, important enough. So you've got to try and impress people by continuing to talk. Just stop talking when you're meant to stop talking. And even when we are trying to convey complex ideas, how do we make them simple? Stop talking when you've made your point, so that you don't repeat yourself, so that you don't bore people, and choose words, choose language that is simple when you convey.
That is so grand. Keep it simple, and I think it's something that I will take forward. Keep it simple. Use humor as much as so that we can connect, and that's what is coming to my mind, that we can connect to the ordinary person. Because sometimes we, like you're very right. Some people, some preachers carry themselves in a very, very holy manner. You wouldn't even think that they are human, and you would think that, they never say anything. Everything that comes out of their mouth has to be serious, and it has to be and that's what I'm getting. We are humans, so we have to also behave human, because the God who created us is also that way. Thank you so much for that, so much. And I'll go to the next question, and that's for this next question for me is one of the very, very important points you made in an earlier conference that we had that I listened to, and I never saw it before in that light. And I struggled in this area, and a lot of people have also struggled in this area. And that is, how do you recruit leaders for various tasks in either your church or your organization? Leaders are always sought after. We need somebody that can get other people to do the job. So how do you go about doing that? Please just break it down for us, please.
Sure. I can remember speaking to a local pastor probably 15 or 20 years ago. And I asked him a similar question, and his words to me were, I never go and approach anybody in church to do anything. I wait for them to come to me. And I thought to myself, well, that sounds really spiritual. You know, I'm waiting for God to speak to that person, for that person to come to me. And I was only a young man at the time. And I thought, you know, that's really deep. It's really spiritual. And I went away and thought about it. And I thought, well, actually, said in a very polite, respectful way, that's a load of rubbish. Because God can speak to people. God will speak to people. But many people, for whatever reason, won't approach you and offer their services. Now, we talk about serving in church. We talk about God's gifted you to do something, and you're called. You know, how many messages have you heard on God's got a calling for your life, and you know, God has a purpose and a destiny for you. And even though we hear those messages, we still do nothing. Yeah. We still don't respond to, you know, to volunteer to serve. Now, it may be, you know, again, there could be various reasons, you know, depending the dynamic of the leaders of the church, where you feel threatened or you feel uncomfortable or you just are too embarrassed, or, you know, there's a lot of reasons for that. But that's not how I'm going to answer the question. How do you recruit people to serve in church or to support the vision, to support? Now, what would you do if you worked for a company and you had a vacancy in your company? What would you do? You'd advertise?
Yeah.
You'd interview?
Yeah.
And if that person was the right person, you felt, you know, for whatever reason, you'd give them the job. Now, yes. Why in church are we so far behind that we can't use that same way of doing things? So, like the story that I've used with you before, David, many years ago, probably 21, 22 years ago, Jen, my wife and I, we were assistant pastors in a rather large church, but the worst department in that church was the children's ministry. Nobody wanted to serve there because everybody wanted to be in what they called the adult service, because that's where God was, you know, as if God wasn't with the children. He was only in the adult service. So nobody wanted to be there. They all wanted to be part of the choir. They all wanted to be musicians. They all wanted to be there. Why? Because that's where the glory was. You know, they're on stage and they're leading worship. Nobody wanted to be with the children. So we'd worked with children before, and my wife is a school teacher. So the pastor said, look, can I put you in this role and can you sort this out for me? Because, you know, many departments in the church are going really well, but this is really struggling. And with all fairness, children's ministry in most churches struggle with people who will serve. So anyway, we semi-reluctantly said yes, because we got a lot of other things that we were doing, but we did. So what did I do? Instead of waiting for people to come to us, my wife and I sat down, we worked out what the vision was going to be for the ministry, for the children's work. And we made a list of roles that we needed to fill. We made a list of the type of person that we wanted. And we went into the main church, and we just started asking God to lead us to certain people. Who can do this? Who can do that? We need someone who can do this, someone who can do that. And over a period of time, it went from me and my wife and one other person to, it was actually just 40 people in the space of probably 2 to 3 months. We had 40 people working in the children's ministry. Now, why did people do that? Well, many people are just waiting to be asked. And that sounds too simple. They just wait to be asked. They would like to do it. They, for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable volunteering, even though we asked them to. But as soon as I went to certain people and explained what was going on and what the need was, they were very happy, very keen to say yes, to be there, to be involved, to teach, to lead with us, and so on and so forth. So, don't underestimate people. You know, sometimes we think for somebody else. Oh, I'm not going to ask David because David's going to say no. Well, how do you know he's going to say no? Go and ask David and let David decide what David wants to do, because David may surprise you and David may say yes. So, we make the decision for people all the time. So we need to identify, first of all, the role that we need filling. what we need accomplishing. We need to identify the type of person that we want to do that role. Young, old, male, female, what experience, that type of thing. And you know, and I said this on the provincial training, David, I think it's very important to have a job description, a job outline of what the requirements are, so that when you ask people, there's no misunderstanding. It is, these are the points that I want you to do. This is the role these are my expectations. This is what I want you to do. These are the boundaries of the role, you know, so that they don't have this false idea of what you're asking them. You know, you're not asking them to be the president of a country. You're asking them to serve in a particular role, you know, so that they don't misunderstand, because misunderstandings do happen. And then, you know, I go looking for people. You know, I can remember going to a couple and asking them to work in the children's ministry. They just joined the church, okay? And I went to them, and the wife, the lady, was very keen. Yes, I'll be in. The husband, his words were, never in a million years will I work with children. I'm thinking to myself, yes, you will. But I didn't want to argue with him. So I just left him. His wife joined. Weeks went by. And then all of a sudden, when his wife turned up, he would turn up to see if there's anything he could do to help. You know, do you need anything to be moved? Do you need anything to be tidied up? Do you need it? And he would just come. And and when he turned up, I'm now laughing to myself. I'm thinking, yeah, he doesn't want to be involved, does he? Anyway, cut a long story short, after about 8 months, he and his wife became the children's pastors in the church.
Wow.
So he'd gone full circle from not even wanting to be there to being in a place where he served with his wife, and they ended up being the children's pastors in the church. And to this day, they are still there serving. And that was probably 20 years ago. So, you know, we can't decide for people. Go and talk to people and literally ask them, you know, will you do? I have this need. I need someone to do it. I've thought about, I've prayed, I've looked across who we have here, the type of person. And, you know, I really believe God has highlighted you to me. Would you be willing to do this? These are my expectations. This is the role. So they've got something to read. Can you let me know by the end of the week? Or can you let me know by the end of May, whatever date, particular day? And then if they don't come back to you by that date, you go back to them. You know, don't just sit there and wait. Go to them and say, look, you know, I still have that need. I really would like you. If there's any questions, please come and talk to me. And, you know, you go and you fetch people, you recruit people like you do in a business. You know, when a business starts to grow and the revenue grows, the employee number will grow.
Yes.
You know, and for me, I'm fully convinced that if God has gifted people and called people, and I like this phrase, it's got nothing to do with politics or the government, but I believe God wants full employment in the church. And what I mean by that is everybody, to whatever extent, is working and serving in the local church, to whatever degree that may be. So there's nobody sat there being waited on, but everybody's involved and we're all working together. To make that happen, leaders, pastors, you have to go and find people. You know, don't say, well, I have nobody to run the children's ministry. I have nobody to do this. Yes, you do. If there's a ministry in the church, God has given you people to fulfill that. You've just got to identify who they are and get them in that role. And if they need training, you provide training for them. Don't get them in a role and then let them fail because they didn't fully know 100% what they want, what they needed to do. If they have a heart to do it, then you work with them. And this is another subject, but you mentor them and you train them so that they can fulfill that role with excellence.
That is so wonderful. And like I said, when I heard you talk about this before, it suddenly hit me that this is so true. Jesus did this. Some of the 12 disciples he had, come follow me. And we also have accounts of some of the people who he called going to call their brother, say, we found the Messiah, come. Yeah. And what would have happened if Matthew, someone didn't tell Matthew, come? What would have happened? He didn't wait for somebody. So that's so true. And thank you for, really bringing that insight and shaking us off from that religious view that we have that God must tell you who to go and meet. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to go to the next question, which I believe is equally very important. What qualities do I watch out for in a potential leader? I mean, like you've just said, I mean, I know that there are people, even in our churches and organizations, that you know that they can do some things, or some people, even some leaders, just look down on others because they think that these people cannot stand in for them. They think that these people cannot do some very complex tasks that they've just announced. So how do I, as a leader, watch out for qualities in potential leaders that might be around me, so that I'm not just calling them, I'm putting square pegs in square holes?
Yeah. You know, this is a, you know, to answer this fully, it's a, you know, it's a Saturday morning training. But, you know, the two things that I always look for with any person is what's their gifting and what's their character. You know, you know, I grew up where I used to hear people say, well, I'll choose character over gifting. Well, that's really not fully true, because there's no point having someone to lead the worship who can't sing. So you do need someone who's gifted. You know, you do need gifting, but you can't ignore character either. So you don't want someone who's purely gifted, but whose character is somewhat tarnished for any reason. So we want people of gifting and character. Now, in terms of the gifting, you know, we want people who are competent in what they do, but there's a little bit more than that, because sometimes, you know, you just said there, how do you some leaders look down on other people because they don't think they're as good or they can't do something. We need to find people really who are willing to learn and willing to develop. Because when I started out, I had no idea what I was doing. 30 years ago, when I first led worship, because I lead worship, when I first did that, I had no idea what I was doing. And I wouldn't quite say making it up as I was going along, but I was just trying my best. You know, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I had to learn. So we need people who've got a heart to develop their gifting. You know, some people will be fully developed, which is fantastic, but there'll be an awful lot of people out there who are still in their infancy in certain areas. So, you know, we can't ignore those type of people. You know, God's given those people to us under our care, so we've still got to use them. Now, you know, you work with people, and if they've got a desire to grow, then for me, that's one of the main things. Because as soon as they have a desire to grow, there's room for you to model to them what you want them to do, so they can see what they want. Because, you know, we learn from watching people many times. We don't always learn by being told. Some do, but quite often we learn by watching and having a go. So as long as they've got a desire, you know. Now, let me just read this to you. I was going to write this down, but I thought, no, let me just read it from my notes that I've got anyway.
Okay.
You said we want square pegs in square holes.
Yeah.
Yep. So we are looking for everybody to be functioning in the right place. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you have the wrong person in the wrong place, it brings regression to the church. So we're going backwards.
Yeah.
If you've got the wrong person in the right role that we want filled, it just brings frustration to the person, because they are the square peg in a round hole. Yeah. But if you have the right person in the wrong place, that person is serving, again, as a square peg in a round hole, but they get confused because I'm supposed to be doing this, but I don't know what I'm doing. But if you get the right person in the right place, that's when you get the progression, because they are serving to match their gifting, and they're able to function in a place where they're happy. Yeah. You know, and if we get the right person in many right places, you know, many people in many right places, we'll get multiplication, because we'll have many people serving in various different roles where they're happy. So that's the gifting side. The character side, I'm always looking for someone who has a good attitude. Now, you might think, well, isn't that obvious in church? David, I'm sure you've been around long enough to know not everybody in church has a good attitude.
Yeah, you're correct.
So not everybody. So you're looking for those people who have got a good attitude. You know, Harvard University in America said they did a survey with several thousands of people and said, would you rather employ somebody with a PhD who didn't get on with people, or would you rather employ someone who was uneducated who got on well with people? And the managers that they interviewed all said they would rather have the person who was uneducated but who got on with the rest of the staff. Now that tells me something, that what we need in church, because we are in the people business, aren't we?
Yeah.
We need people who have a good attitude, who will get on with other people. It's not rocket science, you know.
Yeah, you're correct.
You know, we need people who will get on with people, because the worst is, you know, I've been around with some people in church, and you know, they're moody, they're grumpy. You know, you daren't speak to them because you just think they'll chew your head off. You know, so you think this is hard work. You know, and we don't need that. We need people who have a good attitude, but who are people of value. So they live by values of integrity and honesty and all those sorts of positive values that bring change to us and a positive impact on other people. I would want people with some life experience, you know, because you know, I know some leaders who have left school and college and university. They've gone to Bible college, gone straight into pastoring, and they live in some different world of. Well, I don't quite know where they live actually, because they don't have that life experience, what it's like when the car breaks down and they have no money, and you know, something breaks in their home and they're struggling with people at work, and you know, they can't relate to that because they've never really been in those positions, you know, where you turn up at work and your boss won't talk to you for a week, and then people gossip about you, or you know, how do you deal with that type of thing? So I would look for people with some life experience. And then the main one, and it's some more info from my notes, I'd want people of courage. Now, you think people of courage, yeah, because people of courage make character development possible. It empowers people to do the right thing when they're tired, when they're uncertain, and when they can be fearful. And you know, sometimes in church, you know, sometimes things, and I'm not talking Jesus is uncertain, but I just mean if we're looking forward to push forward with a vision or financially, sometimes things can be slightly uncertain. We're not quite sure what's happening. Even though we know God is in control, practically we're just thinking, what's happening here, God? I don't know what's going on. In those situations, we need people who are courageous, who won't buckle under pressure, who will stand with us as leaders and just say, you know, together we can do this. You know, I'm not asking people with PhDs, you know, who are rocket scientists. I'm just asking for normal people who will link arms and say, look, together we can do this. Let's get on with it. So character plus gifting is what I'm looking for to help when it comes to working with people within the church. That's my role. That's my desire.
Thank you so much for that. And like you've said that we need people who are willing to learn, and I think that is, most very important, because every one of us, like you said about yourself, and even including myself, I didn't have, in some of the things I'm doing today, I never had a clue of how to do them, how to go about them. But that attitude of willing to learn, that you can, develop, either someone pushes you or you push yourself, I think that's really, really, really key. So once you look around, you see someone who is willing to learn, who is willing to help out, oh yeah, he can learn, then you know that they are leadership material, you know that you can push them into this. And I think so many people will find that useful knowledge to know. So thank you so much, Reverend Keith, for that. And I'm going to go to the next question. And this next question says, how do I turn fishermen to fishers of men. So, I mean, people, we know that, I mean, character is very important. There are a lot of people who can do so many things in church, but they're not doing because obviously they're not getting along. But these people have something to give. Everybody, I mean, like the Bible says, he's put something, he gave gift to men. How do we, and I mean, a lot of these people will come into our churches, who, I mean, work with us in different capacities. They have other things. They are working in managerial roles at their job. They are leading projects in some other organization, maybe not in ours. How do we convert those fishers of men like Jesus did? Those fishermen into fishers of men. How do we convert them for kingdom use? So I want you to explain that also to us.
Okay, so this is a Sunday afternoon talk. Okay, so as quickly as I can. So when in Matthew, when you get that phrase, when Jesus said, come and follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Now, the interesting thing there was because quite often I've heard that phrase used in church in terms of we're going to be fishers of men. We're going to do evangelism. Okay, so we're going to be... Now, I know many people, even though they're within church, born again, they're not evangelists as such.
Yeah.
So whenever we talk about this, they get nervous because then they feel guilty because, well, I'm not an evangelist, so how can I be a fisher of men? Now, the two things here. Some people are evangelists and we've got to let those people loose to evangelize. But whilst we're not all evangelists, as you know, we still do the work of an evangelist.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean? Does that mean we go preaching on the streets and knocking doors? I don't think it does. Now, this is why. We are, like we said a few moments ago, we're in the people business.
Yes. Yeah.
And you just said as well, we are a multifaceted group of people with a multitude of different gifting.
Yeah.
And that's where the problem lies, because many people don't, and as leaders, we don't know what the giftings are of the people within our church. We make a presumption. You're a nurse. That means you must care. That's your gifting then. Well, I'm really pleased that may be the case, but there may be another 20 other things that person is good at and is gifted to do. But we don't see that because sometimes we as leaders don't take the time to identify gifting in people because we don't ask, we don't even do any profiling with them to find out what their gifting is. So, and the people themselves, they don't always know what their gifting is. They've just got an idea that they like to do something. So that becomes a difficulty. So I think what we need to do as leaders, first of all, identify people's gifting. And, whether that we do some training on that, whether we do personal, coaching on that, whatever it may be, we need to identify people's gifting so that they know what they've got to offer. And then when they know what they have to offer, we need to support them to develop that gifting. Like I said, when I was younger, I said at the provincial training, when I was younger, a teenager, into my 20s, I stuttered very badly. So I could never speak or communicate. Well, I certainly wouldn't be doing this today. I couldn't even hold a conversation with my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. I couldn't hold a conversation with her very well either because of my stutter. Now, if I didn't have people who supported me and trusted me to develop my gifting, I wouldn't be here today. So, we as leaders, see, it's not an easy job to pastor a church, and it's not an easy job to be a leader because there is so much for us to think about. That is why we need a team of people with us. That's another story. So we need to help people develop their gifting. We need to help people grow on the inside, which is important. So we help people with their character. We mentor them, we develop them, and we train them. So we identify gifting, develop gifting, help them grow on the inside. And, by God's grace, that plan of salvation begins to work in our lives and we start to grow and we start to change. Now, what did Jesus say in Matthew when he said, his words were, follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. So how do you turn fishermen into fishers of men? You hold people to account, but you encourage them, and you create an environment within our churches where people willingly surrender to Christ. Because when we are surrendered to Christ, we are following him, and he will make us fishers of men. Because so we need to be following him. And again, that sounds so simple in a way. That sounds so simple. But when we follow Christ, he will take us, and he will see. As a little boy, for me, at the age of 7, 8, and 9, I have no idea why my parents took me to have guitar lessons. I have no idea. And I asked my parents, why did you take me for guitar lessons? There is nobody in the family who plays guitar. And I wasn't really that interested at the time. You just gave me guitar and whisked me off for guitar lessons. And I learned. Well, it's funny that, because when I'm now 17, 18, 19, where does God put me? He puts me to lead worship. He puts me to lead worship. And why? How can I do it? Because I learned the guitar as a little boy. Now, I don't know what my parents knew, because my father's passed away now, so I can't ask him. But they saw something for them to take me to learn the guitar, because many years later, God was able to take that and use that to lead people in worship. And I've led, not just small groups, I've led churches in big auditoriums, thousands of people, whether it be acoustic guitar, bass guitar, on the drums, or just leading vocally. So don't look at people and think, oh, this person's useless. I can't see anything that they can do. Of course there is, because there are things that God has put in them that they may not be aware of, that we have to help them identify, pull it out of them, help them develop, get them surrendered to Christ. So, that gift is on the altar, and God will take that and he'll say, okay, now I can make you a fisher of men. In other words, now I can make you a person who works with people to lead people.
That's so wonderful. I mean, I can already get something else from what you have just said. Follow me, because I think the key also is in that statement. Like you just said, it's so simple. I think it's been there all along, and it's so simple, and some of us are missing it. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. And I mean, you've just brought out another insight for me. And so all we need is to follow Christ. All we need, I mean, no matter who you are, I don't care whether you are doctor, no matter what, if you want to have kingdom value or be useful in the kingdom, just follow him, and he will then make you. That's a big insight. Thank you so much, Reverend Keith, for sharing all of this insight with us. I am so glad, and thank you again for coming along, for agreeing to do this. we know that you're a very busy man. I mean, even one for us who probably, like you, maybe one Sunday morning, and that will happen. One Sunday or Saturday morning of training, that's definitely coming. That's definitely coming your way. Well, thank you. Honestly, thank you.
David, it's a pleasure. Let me just say this to finish from my side of things. And I'm not trying to do a sales pitch, because I'm not a salesman. But, for people who watch this, and my email is just my name, keithpoole@sky.com, KEITHPOOLE,
that will be on the screen.
keithpoole@sky.com, and my phone number. If you want me to come and do training with you, or to speak midweek or on a Sunday in your church to a group of people, please message me, text me, WhatsApp me, email me, and I will check my diary, and we can book in a date. But I will gladly come. It doesn't matter where you are. That's not a problem to me at all. So especially as lockdown is now unlocking and things are opening up again. I'm more than willing to come and support you and help you. That's what God's gifted me to do. So with all my heart, it makes me happy, actually, to be able to do this and serve people. So Well, David, thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity today. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. So
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for, I mean, and I must say this, just what you've just said, I mean, about yourself being that's how easy it was for me to do this. Just a WhatsApp message, and you're here today. So for anyone who also is watching, I can testify of that just a WhatsApp message, and Reverend Keith, you don't have to speak to his secretary to then go through a long list of, I mean, I can testify of that. Thank you again. And definitely we'll be looking forward to something great again from yourself. And I definitely will be in touch. Thank you for all of our viewers. Thank you again for watching interviews on Christian Insight TV. God bless you.
Light of the world, you step down into dark.